I discovered my daughter crying in an employee's uniform. What my son-in-law saw will shock you. Hank took a deep breath as he entered the small coffee shop just off Main Street, a usual haunt where he stopped for a quick caffeine fix during his break from the garage. But as he rounded the corner towards the counter, his heart plummeted. There was Lily, his daughter, her uniform stark and ill-fitting, hiding her vibrant spirit behind an apron stained with splashes of espresso. But it was her tear-streaked face that hit him like a punch to the gut. "Dad, She started, but the words dissolved into sobs. Panic washed over him, igniting a whirlwind of dread in his chest. He wasn't prepared for this moment. The sight of his daughter so vulnerable shook him to his core. "What's wrong?" he managed to ask, inching closer, desperate to grasp the reason behind her tears. Between gasps, Lily shared the unbearable weight she was carrying, balancing multiple part-time jobs to save for college while facing jabs from classmates who belittled her work. Each word twisted something deep inside Hank. The very family values he had always espoused felt like a noose tightening around her ambitions. Had he taught her well when the price was her self-worth? And then she spoke about Tom, her husband, who deemed her job beneath her potential, whispering doubts that chipped away at her confidence. Hank's stomach knotted. Tom was family, yet his actions were revealing a deeper chasm, a jealousy that clouded Lily's aspirations. How could his son-in-law undermine her when she was stretching herself thin just to pursue her dreams? The thought threw Hank into turmoil. Protect his daughter or maintain a fragile allegiance to Tom? His mind raced as he considered the family dynamics at play. The tension between loyalty and fatherhood churned within him, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. He wanted nothing more than to support Lily, yet he couldn't shake off the sense of betrayal toward the man he had welcomed into their lives. Should I confront Tom? Would that pull the family apart? What if... Lily's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts as she revealed a hidden passion for art, an unfulfilled dream overshadowed by the demands of adulthood. The further weight pressed on Hank's heart. How could he let her talent fade? The urgency surged within him like a flame, igniting his resolve. He couldn't just stand back. He needed to help her reclaim her aspirations, to encourage her artistry before it slipped away entirely. Before he could gather his thoughts and build the courage to confront Tom, he felt a sudden pang of doubt. What if he misjudged Tom entirely? Could Hank's assumptions about loyalty and love blind him to the truth? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he stepped out of the coffee shop, plans swirling in his head like storm clouds, the air felt heavier. Turning to Lily, he saw her eyes, glistening with promise and fear. He knew the next day would lead him to Tom, to unravel truths he didn't want to face. Signs were clear, but the stakes loomed, even darker than he had anticipated. Hank stood at a threshold, determined yet trembling, ready to confront the complexity of family bonds. Just as he steeled himself for the fight ahead, he sensed the unknown waiting in Tom's gaze, an impending storm that left Hank teetering on the edge, questioning everything he once held dear. The sun hung low the next day, casting long shadows on the pavement as Hank approached Tom's apartment. Each step felt like walking through molasses, his mind heavy with possibilities and burdens. The air crackled with anticipation, and he wrestled with doubts that clawed at his resolve. Could he really confront Tom and disregard the family bond they shared? His thoughts spiraled in different directions. He remembered the first time he met Tom. The young man had seemed ambitious and respectful, flush with dreams of a bright future with Lily. But now, A sense of unease shadowed that initial impression. The weight of Tom's words about Lily's job echoed in Hank's mind, twisting like a knife. How could someone who professed to love her diminish her hard work? Hank reached the door, the wood warm beneath his palm. He hesitated, the gravity of his choice pressing heavily on his chest. What if confronting Tom drove a wedge through the family he cherished, the family he had fought all his life to support? Yet, as he pictured Lily's tear-streaked face, something ignited within him. This wasn't merely about loyalty, it was about protecting his daughter's spirit, her dreams. He took a deep breath and knocked, each thud resonating like a drumbeat in his chest. The door opened, revealing Tom, his expression a mix of surprise and wariness. "Hey, Hank," Tom said, stepping back invitingly. "What's up?" "Can we talk?" Hank replied, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside him. Tom motioned for him to enter, and Hank surveyed the living room. It was cluttered, remnants of busy lives scattered around. A half-finished pizza box, piles of laundry, and a canvas propped against the wall. Tom's hobby, or perhaps a hidden passion, it reminded Hank of Lily's dream. The juxtaposition was jarring. This chaos, a stark contrast to the artistic world she so yearned for, made Hank's heart ache. "Sure, what's on your mind?" Tom asked casually. But there was an edge to his voice that Hank didn't miss. "It's about Lily," Hank began, feeling the weight of his words in the air between them. "I saw her yesterday. She's struggling, Tom." Tom's expression froze for a second, then shifted, defensiveness flickering in his eyes. Struggling how? She should know that hustling through those jobs isn't what she's meant for. And who decides what she's meant for? The question burst from Hank's lips, fueled by the passion surging in him. "What makes you think belittling her efforts is helping your marriage?" Tom's face darkened, disbelief flashing across his features. "You think you can come in here and start telling me how to manage my family? You have no idea what I do for her." "Do you love her?" Hank asked, the words tumbling out before he could rein them in. "Because love means supporting her ambitions, not tearing them down." "Look," Tom snapped, crossing his arms defensively. "It's about practicality. You can't chase childish dreams forever. It's time she faces reality." Hank shook his head, the tension in the room thickening. "You're wrong. It's about the dreams that can become real, if only we choose to fight for them." The conviction in his voice surprised even him. Each sentence drew from a well of emotion he hadn't known was there, awakening a fervor in him he thought had dulled over the years. The atmosphere shifted. Tom's posture slackened momentarily, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. Hank seized the moment. "Lily needs you, but she needs to know you believe in her too. Don't chain her dreams with your doubts." Physics seemed to pause, an invisible bridge forming between them as Tom regarded Hank differently. A myriad of unspoken realizations painted the air around them. Yet just as hope blossomed, Tom's brow furrowed again, and Hank sensed the tension coiling back. He was on the brink of a breakthrough, or total collapse. Hank leaned forward, eyes pleading for the truth. "Just think, what if you're not seeing the complete picture?" The room seethed with silence, a standoff that promised consequences no one could foresee. Hank's heart raced, wondering if this was the moment everything would change. "Maybe you don't know me as well as you think," Tom finally replied, and the storm brewing in his eyes hinted at secrets buried deeper than Hank imagined. The air hung thick with uncertainty, each man suspended on the edge of revelation, aware that both their futures, tangled and complex, hung in the balance. As Hank braced himself for the truth, the stakes only rose with every passing second. The impending confrontation had transformed into something far more significant than he anticipated. And now there was no turning back. The silence stretched, heavy with tension, as Hank felt his heart thrum in his chest. This encounter had devolved into a battle of wills, each man testing the brink of their convictions. Hank suddenly grappled with the realization that he wasn't merely defending Lily's ambitions. He was also confronting his own unresolved resentment and fears regarding the sacrifice he had made for his family. "You've taken her for granted," Hank said, each word deliberate and pointed. You've settled into what feels comfortable, but it's suffocating her. You should be her biggest supporter, not her anchor. The words hung between them like a challenge. Now, Tom's defensiveness spilled over into anger. How do you even know what goes on in our lives? You see a sliver. You think you grasp the whole. I work hard to keep us afloat, trying to guide her away from failure. Hank clenched his fists at his sides, feeling the years of work and sacrifice swell in his chest like a tidal wave. What was failure, if it meant sacrificing one's dreams? He processed Tom's words, wrestling with a growing urge to defend his daughter against the man who had once promised to cherish her. Failure? Hank's voice cut through the air like a knife, slicing through the room's charged atmosphere. It's only failure if you don't pursue what calls to you. You're letting the idea of safety imprison both of you. Tom's gaze hardened as he laced his fingers behind his head, trying to maintain a facade of control. And you think that living in dreams is the answer? That's naive. Naive? Hank retorted, the intensity of the conversation sparking something primal. It isn't naive to believe in passion. Lily is talented. She deserves someone who sees her potential, not someone afraid of losing what has never been lost. She deserves better than this. In that moment, Tom shifted, his expression flickering from anger to something softer. Resentment or realization, Hank couldn't tell. The weight of their shared history crackled in the air, an unspoken understanding that both men wore bruises from the past. As Hank searched for the right words, he wondered how far he had pushed Tom. Would this confrontation build a bridge or a chasm? He had already crossed line after line for Lily, and now he questioned how much more he could sacrifice for her dreams. Were they aligning with his own ideals, or would it simply lead to more pain down the road? Do you know what she thinks of you? Hank asked, pressing on. She cares about you, but right now, as her father, I am her shield. You need to reflect more on who you are and what you want to be in her life. Tom looked away, his defenses wavering. This was the crux of the moment, where vulnerability could open doors or lock them shut. As he stood there, Hank felt a flicker of hope and an inkling of doubt. Could Tom truly turn this around for Lily? A long pause ensued, punctuated only by the sound of their breathing. But then Hank, filled with the weight of the moment, unfolded an intimate truth, figuring it might connect with Tom on a deeper level. I once chased dreams too, you know. I let them slip away until I shook myself awake. I don't want my daughter to become a shadow of what could be. At those words, Tom visibly recoiled as if struck. Hank saw recognition flicker across Tom's face, and for a fleeting moment, a chance for clarity seemed possible. But no sooner had hope flared than Tom's walls slammed back into place. What do you know about me? What makes you think this conversation is going anywhere? I don't need your approval. Hank sensed the walls rising again, and it stung. The debate within him deepened, the confrontation turning starkly personal. Then why are we here, Tom? He pressed, his voice now softer but firm, his determination undeterred. Silence enveloped the room once more, heavy and fraught, when Tom replied with an unexpected vulnerability. Because deep down, I think, I want you to see me as more than an obstacle. Hank's heart pounded. The admission lay raw and exposed, an opening for potential connection or danger. Could this admission turn into a pivot point, or was it merely an illusion? Hank fought to suppress the looming sense of desperation, driven by memories of Lily's dreams hanging by a thread. The conversation was reaching a precipice, but would it lead to revelation or misunderstanding? As both men stood amidst the charged silence, Hank felt the world shift, an undeniable tension pulling them both into uncharted territory. Then prove it. The air crackled with intensity, and Hank was left wondering if they could find the resolution they desperately needed, or if they were headed toward a critical impasse that could forever alter the fabric of their family. What would Tom reveal next? The moment to confront truth lay tantalizingly close, yet so far away. Tom's gaze fell to the floor, his defiance wavering as the weight of Hank's words settled heavily around them. In that moment, Hank sensed a shift, a thin veil of vulnerability breaking through Tom's hardened exterior. The air thickened with possibilities, with the tension transforming into a realm of negotiation. "Prove it," Tom echoed quietly, almost to himself. "Maybe I don't know how." The confession hung in the air, raw and unsettling. Something within Hank shifted, kindling a spark of empathy. Here stood not merely a rival, but a man wrestling with his own failures, much like Hank had in the past. "How do you stop feeling like you're stuck?" Tom's question pierced the charged atmosphere. "What's the way out?" The shift in the dynamic was palpable, a quiet desperation laced into the urgency of Tom's inquiry. Hank felt his heart race, the urge to act, to guide, bubbling to the surface. But it required more than words. It required trust. "You start by being honest with yourself," Hank replied, his voice unwavering, though he felt the tremor of uncertainty within. "You confront what you fear. You face the possibility of losing everything, of standing alone." Tom's expression twisted, the conflict evident in his eyes. Fear mingled with longing, and for a heartbeat, he seemed a mirror of Hank at a younger age, stuck in a cycle he wasn't sure how to break. Would Tom find the courage that Hank had once sought? Hank couldn't suppress a moment of reflection. He recalled the dreams he had shelved, the nights spent laughing with friends lit by ambition, only to wake to the grind of mundane choices. That profound loss had now become a catalyst for his actions. He wanted more for Lily, more than he had found. He glanced at Tom, needing to reach him, to pull him from his cocoon. "Can you think of something you're passionate about?" Hank asked, the question piercing the hardened silence. "Something you once loved? Rediscover that part of you, the man she fell in love with." Tom's brow furrowed as if deep in thought, but Hank saw the flicker of recognition ignite behind his eyes. Perhaps they could both find clarity here. "My art," Tom finally murmured, a reluctance filling his voice. "I used to paint, before—" He hesitated, the words caught in his throat. To admit longing felt like vulnerability, a comfort unearned in a world where every painting felt buried under layers of responsibility. "Before what?" Hank pressed gently, sensing the moment coalesce. "Before we got swept away by life," Tom replied, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I haven't touched a brush in years." "Then start again. Use the blank canvas as your beginning," Hank suggested, a sense of urgency pushing the words forward. "Lily needs to see you embracing your own potential. It may inspire her to pursue her own dreams." Tom's face reflected a mixture of hope and apprehension, the battle for his identity raging in his eyes. Hank realized they were walking a fine line. This was a moment of potential revelation, yet still dangerously fragile. "But what if I can't?" Tom's voice trembled, vulnerability giving way to self-doubt. "Then you've just taken the first step. Identify what's holding you back, and then confront it," Hank retorted, unwavering. "You can change this, but only if you're willing to fight for it." As the conversation hung in the air, Hank felt an odd exhilaration take flight. Tom could reclaim his passion, and in doing so, free himself from the anchor he had become. But uncertainty lingered. Would this moment mark the turning point for both men, or spiral deeper into frustration? The tension primordial, Hank silently wrestled with his own fears. He knew they were at a crossroads. They could either pull together or drift apart entirely. Just then, an echo of footsteps broke through the tension, a sound from the hallway drawing closer. Hank's heart sank as he glanced at the door, the weight of their burgeoning understanding overshadowed by a fear of interruption. What if Lily heard their struggle? As the footsteps halted at the door, both men exchanged a look filled with a potent mix of hope and dread, the course of their destinies hanging upon a fragile precipice. Hank's heart raced. What would Lily think of this moment? He inhaled deeply, knowing the next few moments could redefine their family dynamic forever. Let's talk about this together, he urged Tom as the doorknob turned slowly. The question loomed large in his mind. What stories would they share with Lily? Would it foster trust or provoke chaos? As the door creaked open, everything seemed poised on the edge of transformation, leaving Hank anxious yet hopeful, wondering if the confrontation with Tom would lay the foundation they desperately needed or unravel the threads of a family caught in the current. The door swung open with a creak that sliced through the charged silence, and Hank's heart raced in trepidation as he turned to face Lily. She stood in the doorway, her delicate frame silhouetted against the brightly lit hallway, eyes wide with confusion at the tension that wrapped around the two men. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice both cautious and curious, as if she could sense the storm brewing between Hank and Tom. Hank glanced at Tom, gauging his response. Here was a fragile moment, and he could either shield Lily from this burgeoning realization or invite her into a conversation that could be transformative. But enveloping her in bubble wrap didn't seem right anymore. The more he thought about it, the more he realized they needed to face their truths head-on, even if it felt terrifying. "Just a moment of honesty, Lil," Hank said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Tom and I were talking about how to reclaim lost parts of ourselves." Lily's brow furrowed, skepticism melding with concern as she looked at her father and her husband. "You're okay, right?" She stepped further into the room, her gaze shifting back and forth between them. Tom swallowed hard, caught between his desire to shield Lily from the emotional fallout and the urgent need to express himself. "I'm trying to figure out how to get back to who I was before we all got lost," he replied, wrestling to fortify his voice against the vulnerability that shook him. For a brief moment, hope flickered in Hank. Perhaps this was the exact moment for both men to forge a new path, not just for themselves but for Lily too. He wanted her to witness the process of confronting fear, of breaking down walls, the courage to dream again. "Dad, what do you mean by lost?" Lily inquired, her eyes searching for clarity as tension coiled tighter between them. Hank stepped closer, feeling the urgency of his role as a father rippling through him. "I want you to know that pursuing your passions is essential, even when life becomes chaotic. Tom was telling me how he used to paint. It's a part of who he is, and it's important." Hank paused, feeling the weight of accountability slip down around his shoulders. "And I want to encourage that in both of you. You need to let each other in, embrace those parts of yourselves that you hold back." Lily's confusion deepened at the admission. "But Dad, what if he can't? What if he fails again?" There was a tremor in her voice, a worry that sprung from the depths of seeing Tom struggle. Hank could see the gravity of her fears mirrored in Tom's eyes, a reflection of shared uncertainty. "Failing is part of the process, Lily. It's about trying and allowing yourself to feel, to create, even if it doesn't turn out the way you imagined." His voice resonated with the desire to uplift, to embolden both of them. "Tom has to confront his doubts, just like you need to pursue what makes you happy." "I don't think I can start again," Tom interjected, an edge of despair coloring his words. "What if I pick up the brush and nothing happens? What if I don't even know how to anymore?" "You won't know until you try," Hank asserted, an urgency to his tone as he lifted his chin, confronting Tom's fears head-on. "You can't let past failures dictate your future. You owe it to yourself and Lily to embrace that risk." The air thickened with the intermingling pulses of hope and dread. Tom's head fell, grappling with the reality of what it meant to put himself out there again. Could he summon the courage buried deep within him? Hank desperately wished for clarity to dispel the shadows looming over their exchange. Then, in an unexpected shift, Lily's voice broke through the silence again, uncertain yet ballsy. "Why don't we all paint together? Create something that reflects where we are right now?" Both men turned to her, surprised at the suggestion. Hank felt the whole room swell with potential. It wasn't just about Tom reclaiming his passion. It was a chance for the family to redefine themselves through creativity. "Could we?" Tom asked, an edge of curiosity igniting in his voice. Why not? Hank rallied, feeling warmth radiate from Lily's hopeful vision. Let's use this moment, this uncertainty, make it something beautiful. As they stood there, an unspoken commitment weaving itself, Hank couldn't shake the feeling that this was a pivotal moment, not only for Tom but for himself as well. They were all at the precipice of something new, something brewing beneath the surface. But would they leap together or shrink back into their well-worn patterns? Waiting for Tom's answer felt like an eternity. Time stretched thin as possibilities shimmered beneath the tension that still crackled around them. What they didn't know was that their journey of discovery had only just begun, and soon they would be tested in ways they never anticipated. The paintbrush trembled in Tom's hand, a potent symbol of both his aspiration and anxiety. It felt heavy with the weight of expectation, yet lightened by the prospect of creation. For an instant, he envisioned the colors swirling together on canvas, revealing layers of unresolved emotions he had buried. But as quickly as that image materialized, the doubt surged back, squeezing his heart tightly. What if I mess it up? What if nothing I create even matters? Hank's gaze softened as he noticed the storm brewing behind Tom's eyes. It matters to us, Tom. It starts with you forgiving yourself, he encouraged, stepping into the shared space like a lighthouse guiding a ship through turbulent waters. His relatively newfound resolve fueled him. He had opened himself to fear and vulnerability, and he urged Tom to walk that path too. Maybe it's not just about you picking up the brush, Hank continued, holding his own heartbeat steady. Creating this piece together could remind us that art transcends perfection. Look at this as an exploration of feeling rather than a project to critique. Lily's voice, steady and bright, entered the moment, cutting through the tension like a knife. Let's make it a tribute to where we're at right now, our highs, our lows. We can capture our mixed emotions collectively. Her idea sparked something in Tom, like a dormant flame rekindled by a gust of wind. He nodded slowly, eager yet tentative. Okay, let's do it. But what do we paint? Let's begin with our emotions, Hank suggested. We could draw from colors that speak to us, represent what we're feeling right now. Lily bounced on her heels, excitement bubbling up as she turned to Tom. Just follow your instincts. She squeezed his hand, encouraging the connection that they had long been overlooking. The trio gathered art supplies scattered haplessly across the kitchen table, transforming chaos into potential. As colors bloomed across the canvas, laughter intermingled with gentle teasing, the atmosphere shifted. The once stifling tension began to dissipate, replaced by a warmth that only creativity can summon. Tom dipped his brush into deep blue, swirling it on the surface. This is frustration, he murmured, focused. The metaphor struck home. That's a beautiful choice, Hank replied, noting the birth of vulnerability in Tom's artistic expression. It's grounding, isn't it? It forms a foundation. As the hours passed, each stroke of paint became a conscious step away from despair. Tom found a rhythm. Gradually, his hesitation melted away. He was beginning to rekindle the deep-seated passion that once defined him. But just as Tom started to feel the warmth of catharsis, a knot twisted in his stomach. What would his mother think? Would she cringe at the idea of him indulging in something so frivolous when life had felt so heavy? Just as doubt threatened to pull him under again, he felt the pressures of expectation alleviate when he looked over at Lily's painting. Hues of lavender and golden yellows flowed seamlessly together, mirroring her emerging optimism. She was cultivating her own voice on canvas with raw honesty, and in that moment, inspiration replaced trepidation in Tom's psyche. Each finished section of their collective artwork unveiled misfortunes faced, lessons learned, and the monumental progress that remained to be made. The act of creation together rewove invisible bonds frayed by time, connecting their past to the hope-filled present and uncertain future. "Look at what we've made," Lily exclaimed, stepping back to admire their work, perspectives weaving organically into one another. As the sunlight filtered through the window, casting a golden glow across their masterpiece, an undeniable truth emerged. They were learning to navigate life holistically, acknowledging their scars while crafting a new narrative. But beneath that surface calm, an unvoiceable tension brewed. There would be inevitable confrontation, both external circumstances and internal fears yet to surface. Hank sensed it too. They were on the cusp of breaking through, but would soon face unforeseen tests that would challenge their commitments. As the first day of communal painting drew to a close, Tom held his paintbrush aloft. "We can do this, right?" Hank's firm nod answered him, but uneasiness lingered, suggesting that what lay ahead could expose deeper vulnerabilities, questions that could potentially rip the fabric of their newly woven familial bond apart. What would happen when reality intruded upon their fragile optimism? Would the art they created be enough to bridge the gaps they'd both forged and endured? The coming days would soon reveal everything they dared not speak aloud, and none were ready for the unraveling or revelations that awaited them. The morning light poured through the kitchen window, scattering gentle beams across the canvas, like a promise of hope. The vibrant colors they had blended together the day before still shimmered, immortalizing moments of shared vulnerability. Yet, as Tom studied their creation, the knowledge that this fragile optimism rested on a precipice began to gnaw at him. He felt the weight of the paintbrush in his hand once more, yet this morning it was a different kind of weight, a reminder of the looming conversations ahead. A mix of intent and trepidation coalesced within him as he inhaled deeply, trying to expel the apprehension that clung to his chest like an unwelcome shroud. "What do you think?" he asked, his gaze flitting between Hank and Lily, both of whom were sipping coffee, seemingly immersed in afterthought. Lily looked up, a playful grin breaking across her features. "I think we've captured a little chaos and a lot of beauty, just like life." Tom nodded, but his own expression betrayed concerns hovering just beneath the surface. "But do you think it's enough? Will it speak to anyone outside of us?" Hank leaned forward, his voice steady and firm. "Art doesn't need to speak for everyone. It needs to be authentic. We've put ourselves into this. That's the point, right?" While Hank's conviction resonated within him, doubt still permeated the edges of Tom's thoughts. The fears surrounding his mother's disapproval festered like a thorn, reminding him of the strains between duty and passion, the mundane and the creative. The unmistakable feeling of being pulled in two directions weighed heavily as the day progressed. As afternoon approached, an invite appeared in their shared group chat, a local art exhibit featuring new artists. "We should go," Lily suggested with excitement, her eyes sparkling with possibility. "Is that wise?" Tom questioned, the tightness in his chest returning. "What if we face criticism? What if we aren't ready to put ourselves out there?" In that moment, Tom found himself in a fierce tug-of-war with his own arguments, and he wanted to retreat, shielded by self-doubt. Yet as he glanced at Lily's steadfast expression, the resolution to avoid this opportunity felt increasingly untenable. Hank's enthusiasm solidified the choice further. "Consider it a chance to learn, to grow even," Hank added, a glimmer of challenge in his eyes. Tom recognized the wisdom in their rallying cry, a reminder that growth often came hand in hand with discomfort. Reluctantly, he pressed his lips together. "All right, let's experience this." As they made their way to the exhibit that evening, a flicker of anticipation mingled with lingering anxiety. Surrounded by fellow artists and critics alike, Tom approached the threshold of stepping beyond the confines of his insecurities. Inside, the gallery buzzed with energy, colors bursting forth from the walls that seemed to taunt him. Tom could hear laughter, discussions bubbling, and even the occasional exclamation of awe. Every moment intensified his internal sea of doubts. What if nobody noticed them? What if they blended into the background, a story unheard among countless forgotten narratives? But they walked on, together, as if stepping through gusty winds hand in hand. Slowly, he started to see their collective peace. It stood among vibrant displays, capturing glimmers of their journey, a reflection of raw emotions, struggles, and resilience. "What if we just talk about it?" Lily suggested as they gathered before the canvas. "Connecting with people has to start with us sharing our part in this." Tom marveled at her bravery, a newfound courage that whispered to him, perhaps he could muster the same. With a deep breath, he felt a wave of determination wash over him. This was not merely a personal journey, it was a collective one, and maybe, just maybe, they had something that could truly engage others. As voices drifted around them, Tom couldn't help but feel the collective anticipation narrowing his focus. He turned to Hank and Lily, the strength of their bond emboldening his resolve. It was time to take a leap, a step beyond the painted canvas. But as they approached their own creation, a voice broke through the crowd, just loud enough to reach Tom's ears and send a shaft of ice through his veins. "I don't think it's ready for the real world. Who'd want that?" The unwelcome words struck him like a balloon bursting, and he could feel the temperature drop around them. What was he going to say? What would this confrontation reveal about his own artistic voice, and would it shatter the fragile confidence he had just begun to nurture? With the uncertainty wrapping tighter around him, Tom took a deep breath, ready to confront their insecurities head-on. Would he find strength in vulnerability, or be shattered by doubt? The time had come to face the harsh realities of their shared art and the truth behind it. The voice that had pierced the atmosphere around them faded momentarily, leaving Tom suspended in a barrage of swirling emotions. Anguish, anger, uncertainty. Each fought for dominance within him, colliding like stormy seas against the foundation of his budding confidence. Did the critics see the chaos of their creation as an imperfection, or an invitation to delve deeper into embodied vulnerability? What did you mean by that? Tom found himself challenging, the words escaping before he could rein them in. The shaky strength in his voice surprised him. Beneath the steep walls of his self-doubt, a flicker of conviction began to emerge. The critic, a disheveled man with an air of pretentiousness, turned, his eyebrows knitting together in bemusement. "I just don't think it resonates yet. It lacks coherence, a true narrative arc," he replied, an unyielding sternness shaping his tone. Tom felt Hank tighten his grip on their shared canvas, his unspoken support palpable. It was a fleeting comfort, as doubt threatened to coil tighter around Tom's heart. While Tom's impulse urged him to withdraw, retreating into the safety of anonymity, another part sparked with resistance. This was their story, his truth intertwined with those of his partners. Was he willing to let someone else dictate its value? His fingers tingled around the edge of the frame, grounding him. "Perhaps the narrative isn't what you expected," Tom countered, surprising even himself with the clarity he discovered. "But it reflects a messy jumble of emotions, a struggle that isn't always straightforward." The voice that had previously dismissed him appeared taken aback, the corners of his mouth tightening uncomfortably. Encouraged by this moment of uncertainty, Tom straightened, emboldened not only by the thrill, but by the notion that authenticity might indeed have its place in this artistic landscape. Lily, sensing the tensions shift, stepped forward. "We're not here to please everyone. Our creation is a snapshot of our raw experiences, a conversation starter, not a finished thesis," she interjected, her passion igniting the air between them. Tom's heartbeat quickened. He felt the decisive thread of their collaboration weaving tighter, stitching their individual perspectives into a shared narrative tapestry that ran deeper than aesthetics. They were not merely exposing paint on canvas, they were exposing pieces of themselves, quirks, vulnerabilities, and scars. As the critic scoffed and turned away, Tom glanced back at the canvas, bathed in the golden light of the gallery. It was more than an image, it was a testament to their growth. "We're not done yet," he murmured almost to himself, envisioning the unfinished paths of their collaboration, the depths of their stories still waiting to be explored. For the first time, criticism refracted into something different, an opportunity for reflection. What if they were only at the beginning? What if there was more to uncover? Colors yet unblended, emotions still unexpressed. The continued buzz of the gallery filled Tom's ears, unfurling images of future possibilities, a horizon beckoning him to explore further. Maybe tonight wasn't merely about one painting. It held the weight of collective potential, a critical leap into the realm of discovery. "Let's talk to people," Tom urged, invigorated by their earlier resolve. "We have our story to tell. Let's not be afraid to own it." Hank and Lily exchanged excited glances, and together they moved away from the canvas, inviting conversations instead of shying away from them. With each step, Tom felt lighter, as the shadows of self-doubt receded, replaced by a sense of community in shared experience, not just with Hank and Lily, but as a part of this vibrant crowd. As they engaged with others, the thrill of their journey unfolded. Tom was crafting not only a narrative for others to appreciate, but simultaneously weaving a more cohesive identity for himself, one anchored in realness and vulnerable storytelling. The night spun on, conversations flowing and laughter cascading, yet beneath it all, a palpable undercurrent of anticipation surged, one that hinted at the next challenge ahead. What awaited them when the night dissipated, and would they find out just how much they were willing to grow in the face of criticism? As they absorbed the energy of those around them, Tom's thoughts circled back to the critic's initial observation. Was their work ready for the real world? Was he ready? Such questions loomed like the fading light of the gallery, casting shadows of self-reflection and pushing him toward the precipice of revelation. But deeper challenges lay ahead, ones that called his resolve into question. What would it look like to fully embrace his artistic voice amid divergent opinions? And was he prepared for the truth it might reveal? Tom reveled in the warmth of the conversations around him, the laughter and intrigue acting as a balm for the chill of criticism. Spirited murmurs bounced off the walls, infusing him with a sense of purpose he hadn't expected to feel tonight. Yet with every passing moment, an unsettling sense of urgency pressed at the back of his mind. He was standing on the brink of whatever came next, and the horizon ahead was more ominous than inviting. As he engaged with a couple of guests, their eyes sparkling with curiosity, Tom felt the tug of their excitement and possibilities. He shared impromptu stories about the inspiration behind their artwork, how fragments of his life had mingled with those of Hank and Lily, melding into this vibrant tapestry. With every word, he noticed an unfamiliar comfort rising within him, the once derailed confidence slowly reassembling like pieces of a broken puzzle. Hank returned from a conversation nearby, his face flushed with enthusiasm. "People seem genuinely interested. I think we're making them think." He spoke with a vibrant energy that radiated off him, fueling Tom's own sense of possibility. "Yeah, but what if it's not good enough?" The doubt slithered back uninvited but relentless in its intrusion. He attempted to shake it off, but the thought clung stubbornly, festered, worming through the cracks of his newfound assertiveness. "Forget good enough. We need to focus on being true, authenticity above all," Lily chimed in, her voice steady, grasping Tom's attention like a lighthouse amid turbulent waves. "A piece that reflects us intimately has greater value than being merely good." Her words echoed within him. Would that be enough? Would they find strength not in perfection, but in the rough beauty of their imperfections, their vulnerabilities laid bare? As Tom gazed back toward the canvas, he saw something deeper unfolding, a narrative emanating from their collective experience rather than its technical quality. A moment later, amidst the cacophony, the door to the gallery swung wide, the heavy thud of footsteps echoing like a drum roll. The critic reappeared, larger than life, with a cadre of followers trailing behind him. Tom's pulse quickened at the prospect of another confrontation. What storm lay in wait for them now? "Ah, the trio of artists," the critic drawled, surveying them with an air of condescension. "I hope you've taken my critique to heart. If you want to truly engage your audience, you'll need more than just your narratives on display. You'll need authenticity to resonate, a coherence that escapes you." Tom could feel the heat rising in his cheeks, an amalgamation of anger and the fear of inadequacy. It would have been so easy to respond defensively, but that flicker of confidence began pulsating again, a small ember in the cruel winds of doubt. "What if we find that coherence in the mess?" Tom ventured, pushing the facade of calm despite the tempest swirling in his chest. "What if our narrative is as fluid and chaotic as life itself?" The critic raised an eyebrow. "And what then? Will that move anyone?" Tom scoffed inwardly, the old instincts rising to censure the critic, but the words he chose spurred forward instead. "Maybe not everyone, but the right people will be moved. Isn't art meant to ignite a conversation, to catalyze thought? Perhaps our endeavor is more than just aiming for universal applause." A charged silence fell, the critic taken aback for a fleeting moment, and the whispers of the audience rose in preparation for a duel of ideas. This wasn't merely about a painting anymore. It was about Tom's very essence, the heart of his creative spirit. As the tension crystallized in the air around them, Tom realized he was confronting more than just the critic. He was battling the fears that had shadowed him for so long, the very doubts that had once paralyzed him into inaction. Tonight was not just a canvas of colors, it was a canvas of choices defining who he might become. What if there was more to this moment than just artistic expression? What kind of artist did he aspire to be when faced with the weight of harsh critiques? A newfound clarity surged through him, along with an exhilarating fear, a yearning to embrace the impending storm head-on. As he faced the critic, a pungent flavor of resolve grew within him. Perhaps this was what it meant to truly evolve, to find one's voice amid the cacophony of judgment. But would he remain steadfast when the inevitable reality of their artistry was put to the test, shaped by the powerful opinions of others? The critical moment was at hand, and soon he discovered just how deeply he was willing to delve into this journey of self-definition. Tom stood at the crossroads of doubt and determination, his heart racing against the backdrop of swirling emotions. The critic's challenge settled in the air like an electric current, and for the first time, Tom felt the weight of expectation transform into a propelling force. The gallery's vibrancy around him faded into the background, focusing his senses on the looming confrontation ahead. With Hank and Lily at his side, a newfound solidarity provided the buoyancy he desperately needed. "We've created something meaningful," Tom asserted, his voice steady and resolute. He felt the stitches of their shared experience fortifying his conviction, urging him to face the critic with an open heart, not just for himself, but also for the essence of their collaboration. "Art should inspire, stimulate conversations, provoke thoughts," he continued, reinforcing the collective energy swirling among their trio. "It doesn't have to fit into neat categories or neatly curated boxes to matter. It reflects our imperfections, our layers, and our often unscripted lives." For a brief moment, silence enveloped them, thickening the atmosphere as the critic seemed to grapple with Tom's assertion. It was as if the very air around them held its breath, waiting for a response that might shake the foundations of their encounter. Hank felt the weight of Tom's words resonate within him, a powerful affirmation of the dreams they had all begun to rekindle. Tom was standing firm, embracing authenticity, and Hank had never felt prouder. "Indeed, life is messy," the critic finally replied, a quiet edge to his voice. "But can that clutter translate into something universal? What can you offer the audience beyond your personal narratives?" In that moment, Tom felt the strong urge to retreat, yet determination flared within him. "We have our stories, layered emotions of joy and struggle that are uniquely ours," he challenged, struggling against the instinct to shrink back under the critic's scrutiny. "And while we might not sell everyone on it, those who resonate with our journey might find a piece of themselves in it. Recovery, passion, vulnerability, anything close to their experience." He took a deep breath, allowing the weight of their art and experiences to surmount his previous hesitation. "When I questioned whether to blend old dreams with new aspirations, it was my father's belief in me that helped me reach for the brush again. Those colors are reflections of fear, triumph, and growth. Hank, not far behind, felt a rush of pride and recognition. This was more than a simple dialogue. It was a declaration of identity that both men now owned together. Nothing could harness the energy coursing through the gallery as the crowd began to murmur. They leaned closer, faces alit with curiosity, connected by their shared human experience. Could they genuinely confront the uncomfortable truth that their worst failures paved pathways to growth? At the forefront of this inquiry stood Lily, her own art imbuing the air with vibrant surges of hope. Art doesn't demand complexity, it compels emotions, she added, her voice carving through the thick atmosphere. By exploring our struggles, we extend hands to others grappling with their own shadows. It's about authenticity, and that will resonate. With every word exchanged, Tom felt a transformation, an evolution from self-doubt into unity. They were building a narrative more significant than any one person. It reflected their collective journey. Perhaps I underestimated the power of rawness, the critic admitted, surprising everyone. There's honesty in what you're presenting. As voices rose among the audience, Tom felt a surge of warmth flooding his heart. Perhaps it was not about adhering to rigid expectations, but about embracing who they truly were. In that moment, Tom realized this was more than just a testing ground for their art. It was a life lesson on fostering confidence and daring to believe in one's voice. Vulnerability thrived amid the uncertainty, reminding him that their canvas was a living entity, one that invited dialogue and connection. "Let's paint more than just a canvas that depicts life," Tom declared, buoyed by shared aspirations. "Let's create art that invites others to join us on this journey, however chaotic it may be." The applause began as small claps swell into a whirlwind of appreciation from those surrounding them, igniting a sense of fulfillment spanning beyond mere acknowledgement of their work. Here, in this gallery, infused with possibility, Tom felt a profound shift within himself, a metamorphosis catalyzed by community, love, and fearless creativity. With newfound confidence, he understood that failure and success were both crucial brushes in the art of life. As the audience's murmurs softened, all three stood together, bound in this empowering moment. The conviction to further explore the spectrum of art was triumph enough. They were sculpting into being the very dreams they dared to chase, reimagining their own destinies while confronting the journey ahead. Their family bond, now firmly stitched by shared aspirations, inspired them to embrace every challenge that awaited. This was their moment of transformation, a vivid display of personal growth born from sacrifice, struggle, and heartfelt expression. The realization gained traction. Art was an analogy for life itself, a narrative unfolding layered with complexities while sparking connections that extended far beyond the gallery walls. And as the lights began to dim, the anticipation coursed through them. Tom took a deep breath, envisioning how this new chapter would unfold. Was he ready to embrace this journey, this artful odyssey filled with unpredictable pathways ripe for exploration? Only time would tell. And now he felt fierce enough to meet each moment as it came. To everyone who has followed this journey, know that embracing individuality and vulnerability can rewrite the narrative of your life in ways that stretch far beyond any expectations. You too can achieve tremendous heights when you learn to embrace yourself fully. You need to subscribe now to never miss out on transformative stories like this. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help inspire others. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this story of personal triumph. This is the moment to show your support for genuine tales of overcoming adversity. Don't wait even one more second to share.